So good afternoon, everyone. I am Renaud Battier, the Director General of Cerame-Unie. We are going to start. We want to be on time, and it's not starting well. But we absolutely have to be on time if we want to be on time for the Ambassador of Spain, who will come to our cocktail at 6:45. So we'll try to stick to the time. First of all, I want to thank Mrs. Gualmini, Elisabetta Gualmini, member of the European Parliament, who is the person who has made this meeting possible, but unfortunately she had to cancel travel to Brussels. So for sure she is thinking of us, and we are thinking of her. And we have asked Nuno Arroyo, who is CEO of Cerame, to be the moderator. He is from the sector and well positioned to understand the challenges between industrial ceramics, the common challenges between industrial ceramics and artisanal ceramics and links with the cities. So I give the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renaud. The title of the panel is the common challenge. I'm sorry. The title of the panel is the common challenges between artisan and industrial ceramics. The panel is composed by representatives of the European Commission, representatives of cities with outstanding heritage in ceramics.
No. You have to, yes.
Again? Yes. Okay, as well as from organizations that defend the interest of SMEs in Europe. So we are going to talk about the regulatory challenges that SMEs in ceramics and SMEs in general are facing, especially in the context of the green transition. And we would like also to know from our panelists their opinion on the policies and measures that can be developed in order for the SMEs to tackle these challenges. So we will talk about the field of skills, policies, regulation, as well as trade instruments, better access to EU funds, and research and innovation. I'm going to give the floor to our first panelist, Mr. Felix Ron from DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion from the European Commission. Mr. Ron started his career exploring markets of Central and Eastern Europe as they emerged in the early 90s, equipped with his experience. He then worked in a project team for monitoring and assessment of the EU FAIR program. In 1998, he became a civil servant in the European Commission, where he has worked in policy fields, enterprise, higher education, vocational education, and training before he changed to skills and qualifications, where he's working today. Today, in charge of the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills and working in the Pact for Skills team, he's the interface between his skills and qualification unit in DG Employment and the sectorial units in other DGs in the Commission. Please.
Yeah, thank you for the floor. Since you read out what is in the program, I don't have to explain anymore that I'm not an expert on energy-intensive industries, but as you have heard, I work since 20 years, over 20 years, in education and training policy, but also programs, EU programs. So when it's about the challenges that the energy-intensive industries is facing today with the green transition, well, you only have to open a newspaper in, let's say, Germany, because I'm German. Then, of course, you read, everybody feels it in its pocket, energy prices. And the same, of course, for industry, and even more, because the consumption is much higher, energy intensive. And then, of course, you also read a lot about what kind of energy sources are the best. Are batteries the way forward? Should it be hydrogen? And then, well, yes, maybe for transport and not for industry. Then circular economy, of course. This is also a challenge. And here there are new concepts like industrial symbiosis between different subsectors of energy-intensive industries. Well, as I said, I'm not an expert for that, and that is an issue since long, skills gaps and skills shortages. And that is not only due to the demographic decline. So I will speak mainly about the challenges there. So these shortages are reaching record levels. And the SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, or as we say in German, der Mittelstand, which are the backbone of European industry, they struggle in particular. We have made a survey in the framework of the European Year of Skills. We have the European Year of Skills, just for those who do not know. Now you know, 74% of SMEs saying that they have a big problem with getting skilled people, the right skills for their business. And 95% of them say it's very or moderately important for their business model to have workers with the right skills. And that holds them back. And there's 2/3 of them saying that holds us back in our business activity. So we could do more. We could expand, explore new markets. We could innovate more with the right people, with the right skills. It also hinders them to digitalize. It's an obstacle not to have the right people to manage the green transition. And all that in addition to problems they anyway already have, for example, maybe fiscal regimes or bureaucracy. So this is the situation for SMEs in Europe. The survey was all over Europe. Shall I go on with the instruments? Yeah, okay. So then the question is, of course, which EU instruments exist or will be developed to support industries such as the energy-intensive industries, here ceramics, of course, in particular, and how can we ensure that these instruments are also applied along the value chain, meaning not only the big ones, also the SMEs are reached and are covered and are taking part and use these instruments. Well, and here I got a little bit of input from my colleagues in the responsible commission services that are working on energy-intensive industries. And the EU has put in place various instruments to support the decarbonization of the industry. That's the headline. So first of all, the budget, the money, of course. It supports green technologies. We project from 21 to 27 in our budget that it contributes 578 billion to climate change, climate spending, which is 33% of the total EU budget. And that includes also support available under the Recovery and Resilience Facility for investments in green projects. And for that facility, every member state had to draw up a recovery and resilience plan, a national plan. And of course, implementation is now slowly starting. And then we have other funds that take into account different situations in the various member states. We have the Just Transition Fund, mainly aiming at coal regions. We have the Modernization Fund and the Strategic Technology for Europe platform. So there are many funding instruments available that can help to invest and to cope with the green transition and also, by the way, the digital transition. And then we also have our industrial policy. There we have the Critical Raw Materials Act that makes sure that we have the necessary raw materials to scale up clean technologies. Then we have the transition pathways for industrial ecosystems. So this is an effort, industry here, the Commission here, and then they work out according to certain pillars, comprising investment, skills, for example, a strategy for coping with the green and digital transitions. Then we have the industrial alliances, for example, the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, and that alliance supports renewable but also low-carbon hydrogen projects. The Net Zero Industry Act is relatively new from this year, aims to tackle barriers and scale up the European manufacturing capacity of net zero technologies. It includes, and there I come to skills, it includes the setup of net zero industry academies. That said, the academies do not only work on higher education courses, but also on vocational education and training. I could continue now, but I may not.
Thank you very much, Felix. We will have the opportunity to come back to his comments at the end of the presentation. Now I'm going to give the floor to two people who are leaders of cities with a strong ceramic heritage. Mr. Xavier Mogan-Verdejo, who is the president of the European Group of Territorial Cooperation of Cities of Ceramics, first, and later to Massimo Isola, who is the president of the Italian Association of Cities of Ceramics. Please, Xavier. You can go. I'm going. Yeah. Xavier.
Buenas tardes a todos los presentes. Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. La Asociación Europea de Ciudades de la Cerámica representa al sector artesanal, un sector que normalmente yo pienso que de aquí, estamos en el corazón de Europa, pienso que está bastante abandonado. Me refiero a que las políticas mayoritariamente van enfocadas hacia la gran industria, a grandes sectores productivos. Sin embargo, el sector artesanal es un sector mayoritariamente, muchas veces son empresas familiares, son pequeños autónomos. Y para ellos todavía falta mucho terreno que debe recorrer Europa para darles su apoyo. El primer desafío que tienen es precisamente mantener su propia actividad, porque siendo un motor económico, cultural y social, como es en muchas de sus ciudades, esas ciudades mantienen una gran identidad respecto al trabajo de la cerámica, pero sin embargo pues, ven grandes dificultades para mantener la actividad. El segundo desafío que tienen también es el relevo generacional. Esto se ve en todas las ciudades europeas, no es una cuestión de una zona solamente, sino que es difícil ahora que las artesanías puedan mantener su vida porque las nuevas generaciones en muchos casos no ven atractivo o no encuentran, quieren ser influencers antes que artesanos, ¿no? Es una cosa que ocurre en este mundo global. También es verdad que esto no solamente ocurre en la artesanía cerámica. En general, las artesanías tienen esta dificultad en el relevo generacional. Son pequeñas empresas que son muy sensibles a los vaivenes económicos y a los vaivenes de la energía, como también sabemos que lo son las grandes industrias, pero las pequeñas aún lo sufren más todavía. Y se demostró durante la crisis del COVID o en el reciente aumento de las energías que han supuesto un gravamen muy caro para estas pequeñas industrias que son, ya digo, como antes he dicho, que la mayoría familiares. Es verdad que tienen que adaptarse para competir en imagen y en innovación en el mercado actual. Tiene que renovarse la artesanía, tiene que renovarse el producto cerámico artesanal para ofrecer un producto de calidad y que sea innovador, que apueste también por el diseño más actualizado. Se ha de pasar de la tradición a la modernidad, manteniendo en muchos casos las formas de trabajo y todo lo que sería toda la historia que hay inmaterial detrás de de este oficio, ¿no? Todo lo que se ha acumulado durante cientos o miles de años en saber hacer esta producción. El mundo globalizado, desde la perspectiva de la pequeña empresa artesanal, que también hay que decir que en muchos casos son gente de una edad avanzada, y ahora por eso enlaza también con lo del relevo generacional, les es difícil adaptarse al mundo digital, que es una de las dificultades que tienen añadidas a la situación que actualmente ocurre. Esta adaptación pasaría por mejorar las formas de venta online, pero son gente que también, como también ha dicho el señor Félix Ron antes, falta una parte de formación, de poder encontrar en el mercado esta mano de obra cualificada en estos aspectos, tanto en el aspecto de la digitalización adaptada al medio de la artesanía, como la formación de mano cualificada dentro de los propios técnicos que tengan que llevar adelante la renovación de la artesanía, ¿no? Existe también un gran patrimonio en estas ciudades, un gran patrimonio que muchas veces es un patrimonio inmaterial, como he comentado antes, pero también lo hay industrial, que pienso y pensamos que en gran medida desde la Unión Europea se podría hacer más para su mantenimiento, porque muchas veces se ofrecen líneas de ayudas importantes, pero van enfocadas mayoritariamente para la gran industria. Nos falta el apoyo de Europa para la artesanía en general. Creo que hay que hacer una apuesta más valiente y decidida en este aspecto. O sea, sigue siendo un ecosistema económico y social muy frágil el de la artesanía de la cerámica. Por lo tanto, lo único que podemos hacer es, desde aquí, que tenemos ahora la ocasión, pedir un mayor soporte por parte de las instituciones europeas, de la legislación y desde las ayudas comunitarias a un sector como es el de la cerámica artesanal. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Well, I think that Mr. Massimo Isola can pick up on the comments on Xavier and give us his opinion on the challenges facing SMEs and the regulation coming from Europe. Please.
Sì, grazie molte per l'invito, per questa volontà di tenere insieme in un'unica riflessione il mondo artigianale e il mondo industriale. Io sono il sindaco della città di Faenza, città che da secoli ha una funzione di leadership nell'artigianato artistico italiano e di un network di 57 città italiane, l'Associazione Italiana Città delle Ceramiche legata al Ministero allora dello Sviluppo Economico del Made in Italy, e anche presidente della Strada Europea della Ceramica del Consiglio d'Europa, una rotta che unisce 22 istituzioni e città europee, anche fuori dal perimetro della Unione Europea. Noi rappresentiamo città nelle quali l'artigianato non è solo un percorso produttivo, ma è generatore di identità, di civiltà. È un'occasione attraverso la quale, insieme alla produzione di PIL da secoli, si costruisce benessere interno lordo. Lo facciamo attraverso scambi generazionali, attraverso un incontro costante, anche conflittuale, tra la tradizione e la innovazione, tra le radici ed il mondo. Riflettendo su questo momento, sicuramente la prima domanda è se esiste una ceramica europea in termini di artigianato. Ebbene sì, esiste in un modo nuovo e noi dobbiamo lavorare insieme anche alle istituzioni europee affinché esista questo perimetro identitario, perché ne abbiamo bisogno. Le trasformazioni del mondo ci obbligano a costruire una ceramica europea, perché le identità sono mobili, si costruiscono e credo che noi tutti abbiamo questo compito. Possiamo farlo attraverso tanti modi. Di sicuro l'artigianato artistico non è un problema per l'Europa o per l'Italia, ma è un'opportunità unica. Il vento soffia in modo nuovo dalle nostre parti quando si parla di artigianato artistico, perché le specificità, l'originalità oggi non è più sinonimo di rifugio romantico, ma è sinonimo di contemporaneità, di modernizzazione, di originalità che può fare la differenza. Noi stiamo lavorando per innanzitutto consolidare questa idea. Nelle nostre città la ceramica artigianale è, diciamo, alimentata da decine, centinaia di aziende artigianali. Noi spesso le chiamiamo ancora botteghe, come avveniva in tempo rinascimentale, ma abbiamo scuole, abbiamo musei, abbiamo centri di ricerca, abbiamo dei sistemi. L'artigianato artistico tiene insieme le società. L'artigianato artistico è prima di tutto un lievito per le comunità e questo è un bene straordinario, trasversale, che è alla base di qualsiasi sviluppo economico. Le parole chiave, dopo una brevissima fotografia numerica, in Italia abbiamo circa 3.000 imprese artigianali che si occupano di ceramica, più diverse migliaia di partite IVA, no? Di realtà più leggere da un punto di vista strutturale, 4 persone addetti per ogni azienda, circa 15.000 gli occupati, oltre 900 milioni di euro di fatturato medio con 350.000 euro a realtà. Le domande sulle quali possiamo condividere con il mondo dell'industria un percorso rispetto al dialogo con le istituzioni europee sono chiare, ne parlava anche Xavier partendo dal tema della formazione. Sulla formazione c'è un libro da scrivere, soprattutto in Italia, dove la cultura educativa cosiddetto post diploma è estremamente lenta, non fa parte del nostro DNA culturale e invece l'artigianato ha bisogno di nuovi strumenti formativi e credo che un modello europeo di educazione post diploma sia fondamentale. Il grande tema anche dalle nostre aziende dei costi dell'energia è un tema chiave. Il tema del food contact material per noi fondamentale. Non vogliamo essere portati su un dibattito ideologico. Da millenni i nostri artigiani producono ceramica, portando bellezza nelle case, ma portando anche un aggiornamento della salubrità del gesto del mangiare. Ecco, chiediamo all'Europa razionalità, buonsenso, sapendo che si tiene insieme la sostenibilità ambientale ed economico-produttiva, oppure perdiamo dei pezzi troppo importanti. E su questo credo che col mondo industriale abbiamo completa unità di intenti, no a battaglie di religione su un tema così delicato. Per chiudere, abbiamo fatto un percorso insieme importante sull'indicazione geografica, un tema per noi fondamentale. Proprio in questi giorni, anche grazie all'Unione Europea, i beni materiali come la ceramica sono entrati nella grande piattaforma delle indicazioni geografiche. Il tema del marchio, di come proteggere l'originalità, è una sfida epocale, poiché nel mondo globale, nel mondo digitale e informatico, le nostre generazioni dovranno dovranno inventarsi schemi innovativi rispetto a ciò che abbiamo ereditato dal passato, e su questo dobbiamo sicuramente lavorare insieme. Quindi grazie per questa opportunità. In Italia da anni, anche con gli amici di Confindustria, stiamo lavorando per rompere gli steccati tra artigianato e industria, per portare e valorizzare questo grande patrimonio della ceramica, che è un vettore di produzione e di sviluppo economico, ma prima di tutto è uno strumento di affermazione di una civiltà alla quale siamo molto legati. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Massimo. In September, President von der Leyen acknowledged that the majority of SMEs in Europe had problems in order to find the talent, the skills needed specifically to deal with the burden administration. Also in September, it was published by the Commission an SME relief package, which is a set of measures to make things easier for European SMEs. Today we have the privilege to have with us Veronique Williams, who is the Secretary General of SME. Veronique, what are your expectations from these proposals, please?
I will borrow your microphone if I can. First of all, my apologies for being late. I was stuck in another panel and I will have to rush afterwards. But I'm very happy to be here, representing SME United, which is the organization of crafts and SMEs in Europe. And I certainly today also want to emphasize the crafts, because as mentioned, ceramics producers is really a craft profession that has developed further towards also industrial activities, but the basis is there. And I'm also happy that you mentioned the number of employees in your companies being 4, because that's an element that we also stress a lot when we are having discussions with Commission, with decision makers here in Brussels, in the European bubble, as we call it. 93% of all companies in Europe have less than 10 employees. And indeed, the average number of employees per company is 4. And then I always say the entrepreneur works with their staff throughout the day to provide their clients with quality products and services. And in the evening, when staff goes home, because Europe also put in place a work-life balance directive, that entrepreneur has to start figuring out which rules to comply with, how to implement those rules in their company, and then actually also implement those rules in their company, and then also still be ready for all the developments that are going on in society. We now have the digitalization, we have the green transition, a lot of new rules that have been decided in the past few years. So it's important to make sure that the small companies' approach is taken into account. And that's what SME United, with our members, we try to do, and where we also try to bring in the views and the practical experience of small companies. We were very happy that last year already President von der Leyen acknowledged the importance of small companies and their contribution to European society. And then, of course, this year she went further and announced the reduction of reporting requirements. We will see now how much they can really also realize from that promise. We are also working with our membership, and I'm quite sure the other business organizations are doing the same, to come forward with concrete demands. But for us, of course, everything starts with how you develop legislation. And for that, I'm going to use a very practical example on the green transition, because I know that's also an important concern for your sector, being also quite energy intensive. We've had a lot of new legislation developed in the past few years, Fit for 55, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and so on and so on. And for entrepreneurs, that mainly comes in as a lot of sticks. They will be punished if they don't comply with that legislation. What we were missing were the carrots. How are we able to put that energy transition and that green transition really into practice? Because as one of our entrepreneurs told me a while ago, of course I am concerned about climate change, because if there is no planet anymore, I don't have a business either. And I think that in certain regions in Europe, unfortunately, again, during this summer, a lot of entrepreneurs were confronted with the impact of climate change on their business when there were floods, when there were wildfires, and also their company was affected or even destroyed. So we have to make sure that with the Commission, and that's something that they clearly acknowledged now in the State of the Union speech of President von der Leyen and also in the SME relief package, that we really have to work on the competitiveness and making small companies and companies in general able to do that transition that we have to go through. And then an element that is very important to take into account is the investment timeline. That's something that we've been stressing quite a lot. If you decide on climate targets for 2030 and you fix them in 2022, for a lot of small companies and companies in general, you won't be able to make the investment to get to those targets by 2030 because there's 8 years remaining. And when you do an investment, most of the time I can imagine in your equipment, that also takes a depreciation period of 10, 15 years. So if you have just made an investment, you will not be able to replace that in by 2030. Another important element is making sure that entrepreneurs know how to move forward, which technology do they have to, is most appropriate for their company, how can they further evolve in their business model. So that's also an element that we're really working on, making sure that we can also collect best practices across Europe and spread them so that entrepreneurs get the necessary inspiration to move forward. So those are all actions that we are trying to put in place now to turn that Green Deal into that growth plan that was always announced. We're also looking into other legislation, for instance, the Green Claims Directive, where you could say my product is sustainable. Now the European Union wants you to prove and wants you to substantiate with real evidence and with criteria that you have to comply with, that what you are marketing and what you're selling is also really true. And for that, we are also very concerned that for small companies, the demands are going to be too high. And as a consequence, they will not be able to showcase what they're actually doing in practice to do green business. So there we are really asking to make sure that there are criteria taking into account the size and the correct characteristics and the possibilities of small companies to move forward. I think those were my main elements. Maybe a last thing, making sure that legislation works is first asking decision makers to think small first and act accordingly. So make sure that when a decision maker develops legislation, that he thinks about that company with 4 employees, and that during the process of checking that legislation, the SME test also really correctly assesses whether it's feasible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veronique. Well, now to end the panel, we will have the opportunity to know the opinion from an actual entrepreneur, Marcelo Sousa, who is the CEO of a leading Portuguese ceramic tableware producer. Marcelo, I give you the floor to understand how this burden, administrative burden, etc., is faced from an average medium European company. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think this is a good opportunity for the tableware ceramics to share and have an open conversation about the challenge that we have together, the artisanal and the industrial of ceramics. Of course, we have many challenges, and we cannot speak about all of them. I will focus maybe in 2-3 main points that we want to reinforce. I will start to the food contact. Food contact limits are under revision in the Commission, and in our understanding, it's not a priority, and we cannot see a clear benefits about this. Just to clarify what is under proposal, the reduction of the limits of some chemical contents is so low that we cannot find in the market equipment for the labs to measure that limits. So just for we understand where we are. But at the meantime, we don't see a clear benefit for the food security or even the health. So have this discussion without a clear advantage of this and without the right equipment to measure it, this is not a priority. But the point is, if this happens, if this is approved, this revision of the limits, we will give a big advantage for our competitors outside Europe. Because even today, with the limits that we have, every day, we import a lot of products from outside Europe without any kind of control in the borders. So we eat every day in one plate from Europe or from outside Europe, and we don't know if they fulfill the requirements that we have today, even tomorrow if we reduce this. We apply for the Commission, for the Parliament members to make the balance when we try to make some change. We are not against from the change, but we need to see advantage on this from our side, from both sides, for our competitors, but not only advantage from our competitors. If not, one more time, we will lose market share. Another point that I would like to reinforce, it's about the costs of energy. This is a daily discussion, costs energy, transition energy, decarbonization policy. We have nothing against to the decarbonization. We are happy, the industry, to be part of the decarbonization. We are making every day single steps and sometimes the big steps in this direction. This is the future, of course. We have no doubts about this. But what we put in the market when we launch a policy in the long term, that is not common, but we launch today, in this case, in the recent years, we put the pressure in the cost of energy. And what we see today is that we pay much more for the energy than in the recent past. More or less, more than double. That means the increase of the cost of energy is more than 100%. Seems that this was related with the war or with the cries of the gas from Russia. But all of this was solved. And all of us, we know that we don't have any kind of problem about gas in the market or availability, sorry, my English. But what we have behind is the pressure of this policy in the prices. We have many supports from the Commission. We have many programs to the decarbonizations, to make investment, to try to make something different. This is one part. This is good. This is help to make this change. But another part, we need the support in the price of energy every day that we pay energy. And what we have only temporary support that actually was reviewed last week from more 6 months in 2024. What we apply is we cannot live in the industry with these temporary supports. We need a clear vision of the support of the industry. And we know that this policy will continue for the next years about the decarbonization. So we will have this impact in the cost of energy. And if we have only temporary, in the short-term support, one more time, what this means, maybe a big advantage for our competitors outside Europe, because we increase the difference between costs. And in the end, if you want a really decarbonization, if you want to make something good to the planet, we cannot change the way where we produce and continue with the pollution, because what we know is the best practice, the best environment practice, the best efficient energy in the industry still in Europe. So we cannot make one more time these things without the right balance. So we apply to look at the industry in the long term, in the medium term, and not only temporary supports. The last but not the least, we have in the next year the expiry review of anti-dumping from China. This is one more time, it's very, very important for the artisanal and for the industry of the ceramics. This is not just an idea, this is not just a wish. This was something in the past. We request to the Commission to see if we have dumping practices from China or not. We see, we ask to check, and the technical teams from the Commission, as we know, made the right job, and made the right job in the past, and they prove that from China we have dumping practices. So this is very important that we can continue with these duties after 24, and we apply the sensibility to the Parliament members and to the Commission to support our request to continue. Thank you for all.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. Well, now we have 15 minutes for an open Q&A time. So please raise your hands if you want to pose any question to the panelists. Well, so I'll start myself. Picking up on Veronique's comments and Marcelo, I think that regardless of talking about protectionism or the green transition or food contact materials, it seems that when we approach the SME arena, there's always a need for flexibility. Flexibility in the policies that are born here in Brussels, right? So I would like to know your opinion, Veronique, on how SMEs can really have an impact in order for this flexibility that is required. So we really are taking into account with regard to the main players with probably different starting positions.
Yes, I think there have been steps made also by the Commission in the past few years. I just mentioned the SME test, which is part of the impact assessment. So when the Commission publishes a proposal for legislative action, they have to apply an impact assessment to see what is going to be the impact on different actors in the society. There is a specific SME test which is part of that impact assessment. And last year, along with Business Europe and Eurochambre, SME United performed an analysis of 26 of those impact assessments, linked also to the SME test, having a look at, do those impact assessments have an SME test? Has the SME test been decently conducted? How can we further improve? With that result of those 26, we went to the Commission to discuss, okay, you've improved in comparison to a few years before, but there is still room for further improvement. They have already picked up certain elements in the SME relief package now, and they have indicated that they will do a specific chart on what is the result of the SME test in the impact assessment so that it's easily visible, because before it was often scattered all over the impact assessment. They have also provided in the SME relief package to have specific provisions for SMEs, like a longer transition period so that they have more time to adapt, like specific guidance clauses, which I think is also very important, that when there is an inspection and you do not comply, that at least they first explain and then come back a few months later and see whether meanwhile you have made efforts already, and that they then sanction if necessary, but not immediately sanction, because I still am in a positive world, and I believe that everybody makes their best effort to comply with the rules that we have in our society, which is also necessary, because otherwise it would be a bit of a crazy world as well. We have today approved in the Fit for Future platform, which is also one of those points for discussion with stakeholders from the European Commission to check whether legislation is still okay for the future, whether it's still contributing to the objective it had. There we have again approved an opinion to further improve that SME test. And that will be a work for the next few years as well to really make sure that we get input from small companies through our associations on how they perceive, and then also make sure that we can support them in complying with necessary rules. I mentioned necessary rules because if they're unnecessary, we're of course going to make sure, or trying to make sure, that those don't pass. So, but that's a bit the tools that I think we need to use at the moment to make sure that the Commission takes into account, and then certainly also ingraining that perspective of that company with 4 employees, which is not always easy to grasp, because I also come from before an organization with 150 employees, where we had an HR department, an IT department, and I was used to go to the IT department if I had an issue. Now I'm running, I always say, my own SME, but then with the funding from my entrepreneurs. But I have to manage IT myself as well, so I can imagine now very clearly what it feels like to be an entrepreneur. And that message and that feeling, getting that across to decision makers, I think is a very important element to make legislation that is fit for SMEs.
Thank you very much. I would like to, I think, Felix, it would be, I think that Massimo and Xavier will be willing to know what are the policies in terms of skills and talent that these cities that really employ a lot of people, specifically in ceramics, can benefit from, and probably we are not aware because we are a little bit small, we are a little bit far from the Commission. No, I think that now is a nice opportunity for them to hear directly from the Commission what are the resources at hand for them.
Well, sorry. Okay, when I spoke first, then I mentioned many programs, but to start with the EU programs for education and training, for upskilling and reskilling, then clearly the most prominent ones are Erasmus+, which is not only for higher education, but also for vocational education training, also for schools, and also for adult learning. Just to highlight this, the branding was taken over already 10 years ago for all educational fields. But Erasmus Plus is only financing projects where you develop content or governance for education and training. So either improving governance of education and training institutions or revising training content related to job profiles or developing new training content for job profiles that are about to emerge. So then the use of this training content, that is then of course taken over by education training providers in member states, also by companies, because companies also give training on the job or to apprentices. And here there's also support available for running training programs, and it's of course the ESF Plus. And while Erasmus Plus is managed in Brussels, at least the big projects, the ESF Plus is managed in the member states, depending on the size of the member states at national level, in the bigger member states at regional level. So in fact, the money is there. Now, we started, I think, 5 years ago or so, at looking what other EU programs are, in fact, have windows or strands that are also financing skills development. And there was quite a positive surprise. Well, there are also other programs. Now, I'm not starting to list them now, but we have developed under the Pact for Skills, and I will shortly come to the Pact for Skills afterwards, we have developed an online search tool for such EU programs that funds skills development. And that goes down to NUTS 3, so regional level, meaning also the level where the European Regional Development Fund, the European Social Fund are financing, and this financing is done at that level. But this online search tool covers this as well. So what is the Pact for Skills? It's an initiative of Commissioner Schmidt, dealing with jobs and skills, and Commissioner Breton, which is the Commissioner for Industry. And there you already get the idea about the Pact for Skills, that, well, there shouldn't be a division. If you want to give upskilling and reskilling a boost, you have to put all stakeholders on the same table, in the same partnership, private, public. Also pooling not only human resources and knowledge, best practices was already mentioned and exchanged, also pooling financial resources. Because nobody can go it alone, as once the CEO of Renault Group said, we can't go alone, we need public-private partnerships. And that at every level, meaning we have 14 industrial ecosystems. In these we already have 20 large-scale skills partnership. And they formed with a little bit coaching of the Commission, but they wanted to get together in these ecosystems. And they did it. We have 20 of those. Now, we would like to see that the Pact for Skills also goes a level lower, and there I give you two examples. We have the region Lombardy alone as a member, as a regional partnership, because the partnership is in Lombardy, between sectors. Yeah? For example, I mentioned industrial symbiosis, where energy-intensive industries work together, resource-wise, but also energy-wise, and that can be skills for industrial symbiosis. In Lombardy could be a theme for the regional partnership Lombardy. Then we have a network of the European chemical regions that said, okay, we join the Pact for Skills, we make commitments, they all make commitments, all partnerships make commitments, or pledges is the better word, because commitment sounds so legal. Pledges, what they will do for upskilling and reskilling, and partly they also quantify, give a time horizon. This is, and this, so many people want to train by a certain year. So also the chemicals region network joined the Pact for Skills. And I see here on the program, and we heard representatives from the cities of ceramics. Well, I say, please join the Pact for Skills. We have support services. We can advise you on how to organize the governance, if you all may, but as I see it, you already have a governance. And then also to define pledges, to define the time horizon. Yes, and then we also help guiding Pact members towards the existing EU programs for funding. Under Erasmus, for example, we have certain actions where only Pact members are eligible for applying. Well, I think yeah, I spoke long enough. I'll leave it here.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
One sentence, please. SMEs, yes. And the idea of the Pact is, of course, also to have the value chain in the partnership, meaning the big players, but also the small ones together.
I've got a question. Maybe it's to you, Mr. Rohn, to be addressed in the best way. Marcelo Sosa said something before regarding the very low quantities of measurable substances in contact with food contact materials, etc. Also in other EU regulations, it seems that there's the tendency to go very, very low until the really lowest measurable possibility. And from my point of view, so from industry point of view, it's not always easy to get such low values. Could it be, let's say, drinking water directive, food contact materials, etc.? For me, it would be interesting to know or to hear your point of view on these really low values, because from my point of view, it's really hard to get there, and most probably it's not necessary to get such low values because just technology is increasing and developing further to measure even the smallest quantities, but there are sometimes natural materials, especially in ceramics, which already contain some other substances. I was just interested in the, maybe to Mr. Rohn, I think the European Commission, or the Parliament Commission European bubble point of view on setting low values and lower values for example, food contact materials of chemicals and substances.
No, it's not. It's addressed to me, but I cannot reply because I'm not involved in developing regulations in what you said. I'm working in education and training and skills development policy for this. And
but let me try to help. Your question makes all the sense, in my opinion. And the answer is something that we also would like to know. Why we are put this so low, the levels, without a clear evidence of the benefits. Because if the benefits are very clear for all, we don't discuss if it is low or not. The point is the reason behind, a clear reason behind.
And maybe Véronique Willems has an opinion on this. We have worked together at least on one issue, which was REACH on the intermediate definition. So, and that is impacting some of our companies. I don't know if, I think a long time ago you used to work also on food contact, but SME United is also taking position on some of these regulations.
Yes, I found it a very interesting example, so I will certainly take it along as well. I'm also one of those famous members of the high-level roundtable on the implementation of the strategy for sustainable chemicals, if I remember the title well. And there we have also been discussing on how indeed to move forward with chemicals, having a look at if you take chemicals out of the market, are there alternative substances, because otherwise it's getting quite difficult. And we've also had the example of certain colors in ink that disappeared and where tattoo artists all of a sudden couldn't get certain colors anymore. So I will certainly take that example along on the measurement and then making the balance in between, is it really necessary health-wise and is it feasible in reality for the economic operators.
Thank you. Armando, please.
Thank you, Nuno. I have a question for Massimo e Javier, so if I may, I will do it in Italian, because penso che nel panel è uscito molto chiaro anche in relazione all'ultima domanda che è stata fatta, l'importanza di contrastare delle normative che sono basate sull'ideologia, perché questo porta a nessun impatto positivo sull'ambiente, ma corre il rischio di distruggere posti di lavoro oltre che imprese. L'altra considerazione che è importantissimo è il lavoro che si sta facendo, anche grazie a Elisabetta Gualmini, come è stato ricordato all'inizio, insieme alle città della ceramica, perché così si rappresenta la parte industriale, la parte artigianale, tanta occupazione di qualità sui nostri territori. Così la domanda per Massimo e Javier: cosa possiamo fare di più insieme per portare avanti questi argomenti, queste necessità dei nostri territori, delle nostre imprese e soprattutto delle persone che lavorano con noi?
Bueno, yo creo que en principio lo que sí que hay que hacer, que es una de las cosas que creo que ha apuntado, no recuerdo ahora si ha sido el señor Ron, que es, o Marcelo, no recuerdo, es generar este tipo de asociacionismo, es muy importante. Quiero decir, esto es algo que se lleva haciendo desde, por ejemplo, la Asociación Europea de Ciudades de la Cerámica es desde 2014, es bastante reciente. Entonces, ahora todo esto hay que hacerlo crecer y fructificar, porque lo único aquí, o nos salvamos todos o no. Es decir, nadie puede hacer un camino en solitario, no creo que le salga muy bien. Y más cuando queremos tener el apoyo y el respaldo o necesitamos el respaldo y el apoyo de las instituciones europeas y de la legislación para poder avanzar. Yo estoy hablando en el caso sobre todo de la industria artesanal, ¿no? Que es la que nos, en el caso mío y creo que en el de Máximo también, es lo que nos compete. Porque la gran industria está muy bien defendida, es así. Pero los pequeños artesanos, que yo he sido artesano, entonces yo esto lo conozco de primera mano, los artesanos no tienen esa capacidad de defensa o medios para poder ni siquiera acceder correctamente incluso a las ayudas che si offrono.
Ma io credo che insieme il mondo dell'industria che rappresenta i grandi numeri, i grandi fatturati, l'artigianato che rappresenta pezzi di storia, di civiltà, di società, come dicevo prima, oltre che comunque numeri importanti, insieme a noi istituzioni possiamo fare quel lavoro di lobbying più profondo che ciascuno di noi da solo ha qualche punto debole, diciamo, nella trattativa rispetto al legislatore. Io credo che se stiamo insieme riusciamo a rappresentare quell'interesse largo che può avere un impatto più forte verso istituzioni che su alcuni temi hanno da tempo avviato dei percorsi, noi abbiamo detto prima anche un po' ideologici, e come riuscire a interagire e a invertire certi percorsi lo possiamo fare se la nostra capacità di rappresentanza è molto larga. Più la capacità di rappresentanza è larga, più contiene il privato, il bene pubblico, e queste reti di associazioni di municipalità, ma anche la Strada Europea, l'Associazione Europea della Ceramica riescono a farlo, possono portare al legislatore quel pezzo, quelle parole che nel vocabolario dell'industria sono un po' più fragili e viceversa. Io credo che se mescoliamo i due vocabolari riusciamo veramente a trovare le parole giuste per spostare un po'. Rappresentiamo tanto e insomma se la trattativa è da soli poi ci sono troppi tavoli, no? È più facile spostare traiettorie, invece la nostra compattezza credo che avendo anche un paio di temi come sono emersi chiari, specifici e definiti possiamo provare a iniziare a misurarci lì. Insieme a Confindustria in Italia abbiamo fatto proprio 2 o 3 anni fa un progetto importantissimo con il Ministero dello Sviluppo Economico, è emersa nella nostra differenza una radice comune che mescolata io credo possa far bene all'Europa, perché alla fine dietro lo sviluppo dell'artigianato e dell'industria ceramica c'è un pezzo dell'idea dell'Europa e non siamo solo segmenti produttivi, abbiamo anche tanti, le nostre battaglie hanno a che fare anche con l'aggiornamento dell'identità europea.
Okay, well, I think that we've heard about the employment that SMEs create. We have also heard about how important European SMEs are as a focus of innovation. So I think that the common request is for the flexibility and for the policymakers to listen to SMEs in order to develop policies that really help us scale up and care about the jewels that we have in Europe. So I want to thank you all the panelists and give Renaud.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure the speakers for the next panel are all here, but I had a last question that I thought was important is that we heard about the SME test from SME United and how it can be improved. And I was wondering if we would take 2 practical examples. That would be a question for you, Nuno, and also for Véronique. I don't know if the vote on the packaging and packaging waste regulation last week, but that's more a question for Nuno. Don't worry, Véronique. The active would meet the test, but then concerning SME United, I know that you are also following the issue of the ETS2 for housing, transport, and installations, and it has been extended. So the carbon tax that will be introduced in 2027 will be applied to all SMEs that are using natural gas in 2027. It was introduced in the EDETS review just at the very last stage in the whole process, so the last trialogue meeting. So was there any SME test done at the time, and would it pass the SME test? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Renaud. Well, I will share our experience as an example of SME and European policies. I mean, in Europe, we've been innovators in the sense that we have developed an alternative food packaging option that is made on ceramics. And we have developed it in order to be probably the most compelling environmental option, in the sense that we are talking about a reusable product, an inert product, a product that is microwave, resist the thermal shock, etc., etc. But when the moment has come for the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, all the legislation is aimed at the main 5 materials, which basically are plastic, cardboard, etc., etc. So while the idea is correct and the regulation is really addressing the big polluting issue, it happened that in the way that the law was, it meant the disappearance of ceramic packaging in Europe, a truly European value chain, and probably one of the most exciting cases of innovation from Europe. So thankfully, with the help of Cerame-Unie and different stakeholders, we've been able really to receive the flexibility needed from the European Parliament and the European Commission in order to understand that it's needed to listen to the small innovation companies. While just to explain to you very simple, here we are talking about circular economy. In order to be circular, you really need to generate a lot of waste. So the paradox is that ceramics doesn't generate enough waste to have a specific collection system. So while we are probably the most compelling environmental friendly option, we are being expelled from the market due to this. For example, in France, we are very bad treated because, well, it's not economically or environmentally feasible to have a specific collection system. So this is the battle that we are now fighting here in Europe, and we hope that we are going to be successful.
Yeah, maybe very brief on the SME test or the impact assessment. That was one of the suggestions that we put forward this morning in the opinion, that indeed when there is a substantial change by the Parliament or by the Council on a proposal made by the Commission, that they then also will have to conduct a fast impact assessment. So it probably will not happen now. So we will have to make sure that through lobby we can do something. But in the future, we should be able to indeed say at that moment, red card or yellow card, you first have to go back to the testing table before you put this through.
Just for your information, Pact for Skills, we have already a large-scale skills partnership under the Pact for energy-intensive industries. So, and this partnership, I'm pretty sure, I know the coordinator would be happy to receive the ceramic industry as a new partner in this partnership.
So, well, thank you to the panelists, thank you to the attendant. I think now is the right moment. I think that the speakers have arrived, so we are going to let the next panel begin. Okay, thank you very much.
So you want me to tell them to start, or you do it? Or?
You do it.
Okay.
Please.
Hello, we are going to start the second panel, so if we can ask all the attendees to come back to their seats. Thank you. We will start. Okay. Excuse me, we are going to start the second panel. So I welcome Inmaculada Rodriguez Pinheiro, member of the European Parliament and former president of the European Ceramics Forum. So you are responsible for the panel. I give you the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dear members of the European Parliament, dear members of the European Commission, dear members of the Cerame-Unie, and dear European companies. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the European Parliament, that, as you well know, is the home of European citizens, is your home. As you know, I've been working for almost 10 years in this Parliament with the ceramics sector that, supported by European legislation, it can become a more competitive sector at a global level, more international, and achieve sustainable growth, as well as its gradual decarbonisation. I was a proud president of the European Parliament Ceramics, as you have already mentioned, for 6 years, which helped me to love and deepen my ties with a sector that is fundamental for the economy, not only in my region, in the Valencian community, not only in my country, in Spain, but particularly for the whole of the European Union. But I have to tell you something that I suppose you don't know. And is that I knew much more of this sector before I became the president of this important parliamentary forum. You have to know that I am married with an architect, and thanks to his work, I got to know all the potential of ceramics. Its permanent adaptation, its extreme innovation, and its resistance. I have still the same ceramics in the floor of my kitchen because I love it, and it's equal as when it was inaugurated in 1995. This is good for me, but I don't know if it's good for you because it takes a long, long time. And in fact, last week I was in Hamburg and visited a well-known 19th century quarter where the buildings were built by the ceramic tiles and still remain perfectly. Then you do the thing so well that it never dies. It's something we have to think about it. The challenges your sector faces are not few, as you well know. We face fierce competition around the world, which, moreover, sometimes do not comply with the rules of competition and rules-based trade, as already we have a debate with Mr. Commissioner, Vice President, Executive Vice President Dombrovskis in INTA right now, and it's one of the things we have focused the debate which we held with him. The second aspect of these challenges you face, I think is important to highlight, is the winds of protectionism blowing from many parts of the world, including the United States, as you well know also. And the third one, and I think it is on top of that in these times of very uncertainties in economic period is that you have to add a transition to less carbon-intensive industries. And this is a huge challenge you have to face. It's true that the road is hard, but you will get there. And it has to be with the support of the European institutions, of the Commission, of the European Parliament, and for sure of the Council. In this second panel of the European Parliament Ceramic Forum, we will discuss with MEP colleagues, with European commissions and experts about the challenges on sustainable and energy transition in the EU construction sector. In 2023, the European Union has launched its proposals to contribute to the efficient functioning of the internal market, ensuring the free circulation of safe and sustainable construction products in the Union, and to the objectives of a green and digital transition, preventing and reducing the impact of construction products have on the environment and on people's health and safety. As always, and as you know, I have always advocated we must achieve this transition with the support of industry and by providing the conditions to maintain employment in this strategic sector. But I support the transition if this transition allows the technology that is available in the current times and giving industry, I think this is crucial point, the necessary time to make the transition possible. We need to provide industry predictability and investment support. I know that the industry fully supports the objectives of achieving a well-functioning single market for construction products, as well as contributing to this green and digital transition to a competitive and resource-efficient construction industry. We should support the inclusion in this single market for construction products, the principles of circularity and environmental sustainability, and easier information between economic actors enabled by digitalization. Eco-design requirements should help to avoid duplications of efforts and unnecessary regulatory burden for manufacturers and promote the harmonization of recycling and reuse regulations across all member states. A functioning and stable legal framework is of utmost importance for companies to remain competitive in the European and global construction sector, and it is key for the European Economic Union, which has recently been affected by both the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Since 2021, Cerame-Unie is an official partner of the new European Bauhaus initiative. Ceramic construction products can play a key role in this transformational project for a sustainable, inclusive, and a beautiful built environment. The objective of this panel debate will be to address and discuss current EU policies for a more sustainable, energy efficient, and circular construction sector. Before giving the floor to each panelist, I inform you that all of you, each one, will have a 7 minutes time for speaking, and in order to have time for the colloquium that with the attendees, and that always is the best part of any panel. Let me introduce today's first guest. This is my colleague and my friend, Marcos Ros Sampere. Marcos is a member of MB committee, is a substitute member, a very active member. He is the coordinator of the new European Bauhaus Friendship Group. In fact, this friendship group has been created because of you. It's something we have to highlight. And during this 2023 year, it has been a very busy year, I know, because I have a very close friendship with him, and I know how hard he has worked. And it has been a very busy year for the European Parliament when it comes to construction files. with negotiations on the revision of the Construction Products Regulation, the revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, and continuing discussions on the new European Bauhaus initiative. Mr. Rosampere has played a crucial and excellent job in all these issues. Then let me ask you some questions. Could you please share with us your perspective on those files and on the development policies of improving the construction and built environment in a sustainable way? Now the floor is yours for 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imma, for your question, for your presentation, and thank you very much also to the European Parliament Ceramics Forum for organizing this incredible day today, addressing from the 3 panels the different points of view, challenges and opportunities that the construction sector has on a European scale. And yes, it is true that this is a key legislature for the built environment at all levels, our homes, our buildings and our cities. I believe that we, all the members, representatives and agents gathered here today, we are already aware of the importance of the construction and building sector for our society. The social, environmental and economic impact is undeniable. For this very reason, the different policies that we are tackling during this term are shaping a truly positive future for the sector. The different regulations, directives and initiatives that are taking place and are giving shape to an ecosystem that must be sustainable in every sense of the word. I will try to briefly share with my position on the 3 initiatives you have mentioned, and on which I have had the good fortune to be able to work within our parliamentary committees. I will start with the revision of the Construction Products Regulation. I had the opportunity to contribute to this text in its opinion from the ITRE and ENVI both committees. The Commission proposal seeks to adapt the construction products industry to meet the objectives of the green and digital transition by updating the previous regulation. The response of this Parliament was positive, but in my view, it lacked the climate ambition that we usually in the Parliament demonstrate. Some relevant points incorporated were the preservation of minimum obligation on 3D printed construction products and on the obligation of economic operators who de-install for reuse or remanufactured products, the proposal of a roadmap for transition and standardization priorities in order to streamline the standardization process and ensure greater transparency, creating and requiring the use of a digital passport for construction products accessible to all operators, customers, users and authorities. And I think this is very important for your sector. Fourth, the creation of mandatory sustainability requirements such as technical specifications, performance levels, award criteria or selection criteria when using green public procurement. And fifth, most importantly, the entry into force of the new regulation no later than 10 years after its approval. The Commission envisaged 1st of January 2045, which was too long. So the Commission wanted to enter into force in 45, but we adopted 10 years after the approval, which will mean 33. However, some negative points, such as the deletion of the direct installation of products or the prevalence of this regulation over the eco-design regulation, I think that they reduce a bit the ambition of the text. And it is not very common that the Parliament used to be more ambitious than the proposals coming from the European Commission. But overall, we can be happy with our proposal, which is a step towards a more sustainable construction industry, and it also involves your sector. Another initiative that has been discussed and is very relevant for the sector is the revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Our Parliament has taken another step forward in climate ambition with its position on this initiative, which is currently in the final stage of the trilogue negotiations, under the ultimate goal of making all buildings in the European Union zero emissions by 2050. We in the European Parliament propose the following intermediate targets. For new buildings, public buildings to be zero emission by 2026 and others by 2028, and for existing buildings, public and private, to reach class E by 2027, D 2030, and residential buildings 2030 and 2023. So far, we know that the negotiations are going on, and we have reaching some agreements on the MEPs, on the energy performance certificates, on zero-emission buildings or financial projection. But I am sure that the final negotiation with our rapporteur, Kieran Kufe from the Greens, and with the Spanish presidency support, will arrive to a good agreement as soon as possible. And finally, in the last minute, perhaps for me, the most relevant initiative for the world of architecture and urban planning, in which I had the opportunity to be the rapporteur of the report on new European Bauhaus adopted past September 2022. I sincerely believe that this is a project that aims to encourage us to improve the way in which we are going to invest European funds for infrastructure, cities, buildings and housing, whether for new construction or refurbishment of energy improvement. But we need to take into account not only sustainability, but also beauty and also inclusion or togetherness. We have asked for some things to the European Commission, for a need for a stable budget, for clear criteria, for a labelling strategy, and we are achieving some of them. Finally, in the past week, we adopted the budget for 2024, and there is a pilot project incorporated in this budget that was proposed by me, in which we will create a new funding advisory hub that will effectively connect investors, promoters, or project developers. And I think that you can, as a sector, be promoters of the new European Bauhaus projects. So I conclude by recalling, as I said at the beginning, that we are in a crucial moment for the future of built environment, and I think we must continue on this path while keeping in mind for a single minute the people. They are, after all, the ones who will benefit from all this. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Marcos, for your wide and detailed intervention. I think it's very clear. Thank you very much. And now, once the Parliament has been given voice, I am going to do the same with the Commission, the European Commission. I like very much the different perspectives. I said at the beginning of my speech that it's very important to take into account the reality of time. And then I would like to know, how do you think about the calendar for buildings and to make the transition of these buildings for the future in the period it has been established? But I have also to ask you for all the regulation you are working with. Let me first tell you that Philippe Mosley is a policy officer construction unit in the DG CROW, and he's working in a very ambitious initiative supports. I have to highlight among them the revision of the construction products regulation, the energy performance of buildings directive revision, the EU taxonomy. Also, it is very important for sure. The EU end-of-waste criteria for construction and demolition waste, and the upcoming EU roadmap for whole life carbon at building level. Now the floor is yours for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me here today. I've got 7 points to make, so I guess it's 1 minute per point, so that gives me an easy way to time it.
You can do it.
So yes, I think that first of all, I wanted to give a little bit of context. Of course, we're well now into the European Green Deal, so everybody knows what it's about, but it's one of the things I think it's about is European leadership. When it comes to the environment and the green transition of industry, and it's something that the world is looking to us, I think, for leadership on this. We've, of course, have, as already mentioned, the changing context, the changing legislative context, but also the geopolitical context and the prices, which have been very high, the interest rates, and all of this makes the situation looking forward, for example, into the next year, very difficult for construction. And at the same time, we know that construction has a very high environmental impact. 37% is the figure of all EU waste that comes from construction and demolition. It's the biggest single source of waste. And that's something that we, that is not going away, that figure. It's always at the front of our minds. And then also we see the transition to a circular economy and the green transition in general as a huge opportunity. There's the renovation wave is an enormous opportunity for construction, and also this shift from linear to circular. When we talk about the construction industry, we have the 14 ecosystems defined by the EU industrial strategy. Construction is actually the second biggest, both in employment terms and in value-added terms. Almost 10% of Europe's value added is from construction, 25 million jobs, 5 million companies. But at the same time, we know from the previous panel, the dominance of SMEs applies also to construction, 95% micro enterprises. And that means many things, including a low capacity to uptake innovation, a low capacity to invest and also invest in skills. The policy that we have developed, the policy document over the past year or more, is the transition pathway for construction. In line with all of the industry ecosystems, we have developed this, co-created it with industry and with member states and with stakeholders, and through the high-level construction forum that we convene in DG GROW. This is the single document where you will find all the policies at EU level are relevant to construction. And what we're now doing following its publication this year is calling on all stakeholders to send to us additional pledges of action that align with the transition pathway. And we will use that to monitor the transition, and we will help to highlight these pledges of action from the industry. And then we've also heard, of course, about the Construction Products Regulation. It's probably the most important single piece of legislation for construction itself, apart from the EPBD, of course. The key thing it's going to do is really level the playing field when it comes to the circular economy, level the playing field for construction products to compete with each other on environmental characteristics as well as other characteristics, and level the playing field for secondary materials as well. So we have a standardization process already started to update harmonized European standards. We're going through all of the product groups one by one in a process that will take about a decade with CEN, and the Commission's giving the mandate for that. And then we have, looking at the whole life cycle, this issue of life cycle carbon or life cycle greenhouse gas emissions. It's a new policy area. It requires joined up thinking in ways that maybe we don't normally do, looking across departments, across DGs in the Commission. It's the same in the member states, the ones that are already working on this. There's relatively little data, but we're working on it. We actually have a preparatory action in DG GROW analysing the greenhouse gas emissions of construction that will give us a lot more data. And we're developing an EU roadmap which is expected sometime in the spring. It's led by our colleagues in DG Environment, but we're working across DGs really together on this. And this will set out some milestones of how to achieve lowered greenhouse gas emissions in buildings. So this is a very active policy area, and industry has told us very clearly that it's a top priority. And then one of the ways we can divert investment is through the taxonomy. The taxonomy is, simply put, a classification system. It sounds very simple as a classification system, but since the recent publication of the Environmental Delegated Act and the focus on the circular economy and construction, we have seen and heard a lot from industry that that's having a big impact. But its idea is to mitigate market fragmentation. And finally, on waste, coming back to this huge statistics on waste, one of the things we can do is develop end-of-waste criteria, and these are the legal definition of when waste becomes a secondary material. And we have a study ongoing gathering data on that. I think I will leave it there, and I'll look forward to an interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was sure you were going to be able to do on time perfectly. And I'm sure also that after you will have the opportunity to debate, to discuss with the audience. Well, now it's time for listen our third expert. His name is Mr. Dirk-Jan Simons. He's, I said correctly? Yes. Perfect. He's partner at LBP site. And he's here for something that I think is very important and not very well known. I think we have to take advantage of these opportunities to defend the results of this. He's one of the persons who has been really involved in a consortium of European associations in the field of construction products that published in 2022 a peer-reviewed study entitled Carbon Accounting for Building Materials, an assessment of global warming potential of bio-based construction products. This important study was undertaken by the company where he is working. He's a partner, a consultancy and engineering firm specialized particularly in the field of construction and the environment. And now I give you the floor for 7 minutes in order to can highlight the most important results of this important study. Please, Mr. Simons, the word is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me today. Achieving a net zero carbon economy by 2050 is one of the key pillars, of course, of the European Green Deal. So we need carbon neutrality. Carbon neutrality is achieved when all carbon emissions are balanced by carbon removals. In nature, this carbon neutrality is achieved automatically. All carbon emitted during the life cycle of organisms eventually is taken up again by other organisms, such as plants or trees. This principle has led to the notion that increased use of bio-based products, and specifically timber, is a simple solution, a shortcut route for transforming the construction industry in light of the Green Deal. This thinking is partly based on the assumption that growing, transporting and processing bio-based materials into construction products has a lesser impact on the environment than other materials. So this was the reason for the Cerame-Unie, together with other consortium partners, to dive deeper into this subject matter, with a focus on temporary carbon storage in timber, how it is accounted for, and its potential to mitigate climate change. It resulted in a 200-plus page study, which is impossible to summarize in 7 minutes, of course, partly because it's very technically detailed, but I will give you the highlights that I think are important for you. I want to go back shortly to the aspect of carbon neutrality. Trees and forests are natural carbon sinks, but they lose this property the moment they are cut down and used as building components. Regenerating young forests compensates the carbon loss through growth of new trees. However, the generation time of the forest is much longer than the period of carbon loss. causing a temporary carbon imbalance, the so-called carbon debt. The time it takes for new trees to grow back and balance the carbon debt by taking up as much carbon as was lost from the system after cutting is called the carbon payback time. And this is usually in the order of decades to up to a century. We don't really have that much time, if we look at our current transient climate, of course. Now, it is often stated that this is not an issue in sustainably managed forests, where the carbon stock is supposedly in balance. This means that whatever is taken out of is already grown back at the moment of harvesting. But the exact definitions of what it really counts as sustainably managed forests when it comes to carbon neutrality is often not clear. And is not a guarantee for success. The carbon stock in quite a few European forests is currently declining. So here you see an important drawback of thinking of timber construction products as climate positive by definition. Now, evaluating the environmental effects of construction products in an objective way is one of the preconditions for taking the right measures and decisions to mitigate climate change. Fortunately, this is possible because the global warming potential is one of the most important categories for what we call life cycle assessments, LCAs in short. LCA is a scientific method used to analyze the environmental impacts of goods and services throughout their entire life cycle. In the construction sector, this method is used to develop so-called environmental product declarations, EPDs. The EPDs form the building blocks, if you will, on which full impact assessments at the building and infrastructure level are performed. When looking into the way LCAs are performed, it is important to realize that we as scientists have to rely on background processes in several databases. Within these databases, it is not possible to make a distinction between carbon neutral and non-carbon neutral sourced timber, or whether harvesting resulted in tree stumps and debris to be left behind in the forest, which decomposes and releases CO2. Moreover, there is no generally agreed upon scientific and/or European system how to account for and credit temporary carbon storage in construction products. Now, the environmental performance of a product is, if you will, becoming a more and more discriminating element in the choice of building materials. So a comprehensive evaluation of the effects of all types of environmental impacts, even the ones that are not in current LCA methodology, must be ensured. So I want to stress that there's still a lot of work to be done in that area. Now, putting these considerations all aside, what is actually the mitigation potential of timber construction products? We investigated that too, using data from the EU Joint Research Council, Centre, and IPCC. Currently, about 35 megatons of CO2 is harvested in the EU per year as timber. Even when we assume this all originated from truly carbon neutral forests and that the storage is considered permanent, this can only account for prevention of climate change of 0.002 degrees Celsius. Let that sink in. And mind you, this is all harvested wood products in the EU, so also timber for bioenergy and furniture. So certainly, at the European scale, timber in construction products does not provide the answer to climate change. More importantly, the IPCC concluded in their 6th assessment report that forests should be preserved, restored and expanded as much as possible. The IPCC concluded that forests have a 20-fold higher potential to mitigate climate change than application of timber in buildings. And that is assuming carbon neutrality of all timber construction products. Increased promotion of application of timber in construction products may actually have an adverse consequential effects on forest preservation. So in conclusion, for long we have seen the application of timber in construction as the holy grail to prevent climate or prevent or mitigate climate change, but it isn't. Therefore, it is important that the construction product sector moves forward on their own decarbonization strategies. And for the ceramics and brick sector, this could mean, for instance, electrification options or green hydrogen options for kilns and ovens, or for raw material extraction and transport. Or if you look at innovative materials and production processes, you could use more recycled materials, waste streams, geopolymers, and perhaps carbonation of steel slags. These are some examples that the sector can move on. I want to leave you with that for your consideration.
Thank you very much, and also for the time you have spent, just exactly 7 minutes. And now, last but not least, in order to finish with the first interventions of this interesting roundtable, I have the pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Ratana. He is the president of European Tiles and Bricks Federation, and you have the floor for other 7 minutes to answer some questions I'm going to ask you. How can ceramic construction products actively contribute to a sustainable energy transition in the construction sector? Second, for this purpose, which policies are required at European and national level? The Environmental Delegated Act of the EU taxonomy defines technical screening criteria for the construction sector with very ambitious targets of secondary raw materials for ceramics at building level. From an industry perspective, what challenges do you face in this important issue? Thank you very much. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here today. I prepared a speech and I was listening very careful to Mr. Simmons, and I would say I fully agree with what you said because as we discussed it today, we own a forest beside a brick factory, so we know what it is about, how long it lasts until a tree is growing and how fast we can take it out. But back to the question, ceramic products already have the answer to the sustainability already in their DNA because ceramic products, and we all know it, are sustainable, versatile and durable due to their properties. This is what people know already since thousands of years, and I think a big proof is already the historical buildings that we see. And we talked also about, Mr. Mosley talked about the lifespan, which is quite important in this case. So this is the proof of the key characteristics of sustainability. I would like to emphasize that we are certainly an important part of the solution. So we are not really the problem. So if you look at the ceramic industries carefully and detailed, then you can see it quite clear that we are really the solution for all the climate problems that we have. We have at the moment facing, and we had it in the first panel before, a lot of threats and crises that we have to face, and dramatically rising energy costs, a lack of alternatives, rising interest rates, high inflation, resulting wages increases, rising transportation costs, and of course increasing requirements in the area of energy management. And at the end, we have a lack of planning security, and this is a bit a problem for us, especially for the SMEs. We have lack of guidelines to adjust and a lack of reliable subsidies. There's also an urgent need for actions in the area of research and development, and this is a big part that we also discussed before. For many SMEs and research institutions, however, European research funding is almost impossible or difficult to access, even if they are quite big and there's a lot of money available, but almost, I know, less they can really make it. An additional funding is often limited or frozen. That is the situation what we have at the moment in Germany. So we should also consider that all these challenges will have also, and we discussed it today also, on social impact, beside the natural impact that you mentioned before, on the people. We should not forget also the people, because the products, the ceramic products that we produce is made for people. So people have a house, people have sanitary ware, people have roof tiles, people have really important daily used items made out of the ceramics. So don't underestimate also in all the regulations and classifications that the people and the humans have to be a part of it, a part of the solution and a part of the look on the situation. Some people always think that the industry or the ceramic industry has just started to improve with the focus on climate change to be more efficient, but this is fundamentally wrong. Even before the energy crisis, all manufacturers were already trying to produce more efficiently and save energy. Therefore, we fundamentally support the EU's efforts to protect the climate by setting targets. 64% of our emissions came from natural gas, so this is the current situation. We are therefore dependent on a sufficient and affordable supply of energy sources to get closer to these targets. At present, natural gas is still the main energy source. Of course, we discussed it before, electrical energy is a possible solution, but it's also expensive, and it's also another problem that is not always available in sufficient quantities. In addition, there are still some technical and ceramic challenges to be solved. It depends also a bit on the technician and the energy source that we can use, because it makes a fundamental difference between hydrogen, for example, or electricity from the technical side and also from the ceramic side. And all these research and development has to be solved, and therefore we need a clear guidance what is exactly the energy source that we should use and what is the quantity and the price for it. Many manufacturers already have technical prepared themselves for significant, to use significant proportion of hydrogen, so it's not that new, or it's not that we are not moving, so, but the hydrogen is missing at the end. However, there's still a lack of affordable and available hydrogen. And however, I would like to state on behalf of the ceramic industry that we are determined to achieve the required and necessary goals. For these, we would need to affordable, sufficient green energy sources, because it's also important if we talk about hydrogen, it's not only hydrogen made by coal, which is mostly the case at the moment. So we need also the green hydrogen, and this is not even available at all. So in addition, the introduction of the guidelines for the state aid for the energy transition in gas-intensive sectors, this is also quite important. So further, we have also in our new manifesto some critical points and important issues that is important to see and have a clear look on the sustainability of our sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ratana. And now it's time for open the discuss with all the attendants, and then I ask you to introduce yourself before to ask the question and to indicate to which panelist do you like to answer. Well, we have a floor here. Anybody else? I have two. Any other one?
¿Funciona esto?
3 and 4. Stop here. And 5. Stop here. Stop here.
Thank you very much.
Only 1 minute each.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This thought is and this request is going to Philippe, if I can call you by your name, Philippe. And you have talked about leadership, and we take that as an industry in terms of sustainability, decarbonization. Imma talk about transition, decarbonization, innovation. Well, I think that somebody has talked about time as well. In the ceramic roadmap that we have in Cerame-Unie, it is a kind of non-written agreement between the industry and the entities, in which you ask us to innovate for decarbonization, to keep growth in the economy of the EU, while we gain some time during this transition and some protection during this transition. Today, in the frame of the Ceramic Days, it has been announced that the sanitary ware sector has been launched the new tunnel and the first tunnel kiln that works on electricity. This is a pioneer in the industry, in the world. This kiln, it works with green electricity. This has been a 4-year investment for a sector, working together with the manufacturers, of the kiln manufacturers. We had to invest in the kiln manufacturers because otherwise they didn't have the means to do it. So now we buy kiln manufacturers as well. So, and we have achieved it thanks to all this industry for years. This kiln is one, but the company that has created this, Roca, has 140 kilns. Even if we had the money to replicate the 143 remaining kilns, our kiln manufacturer wouldn't have the means to do that. So we are doing the homework, but how can you give us time and support to do what you have asked to do and that we are doing? Because we are there to do it, but we need time. It's not about the money only, it's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The second was there, yes. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Antonia Grieche-Reitmeier from Wienerberger, Austria. First of all, I would like to thank all the panelists for the very interesting messages. And I have a question to Mr. Mosley from DG GROW. We know each other from last week's call on the taxonomy, and thank you again for that, and thank you again for the time you invested to discuss with us this very important topic. And today I would like to reiterate again some of the circularity advantages of our construction products, of the ceramic construction products, like again the longevity, the durability of our products. It's up to 100, 150 years for a product. We have even included this in our EPDs in some countries. Then the usability of some of our products, just to mention the roof tiles, the facade elements. So we have this reusability, the reuse possibility given. Then the recyclability of our products. And I know that you're all aware of that because we discussed it already. But today I would like to highlight again that we are keen as industry to do our utmost to support the taxonomy, defined taxonomy criteria for circular buildings, but therefore we need really your support regarding the share of non-primary raw materials, which is accountable. We discussed it. You know, we have the issue of the byproducts. We have like grinded scrap. We have additives which we use, which are included in our raw material mixture. We have the issue of the excavated soil. We are really keen to do our utmost to do what is necessary to have more circular buildings in the EU. But therefore, again, please support us on this topic. And I'm really interested to hear from you again. What's your opinion on this topic? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I ask you to reduce the time for explaining your questions. Yes, the third one was here.
Yes, about the colleague from, first to present myself, I'm Preslav Christov, doctor in ceramic from Bulgaria. We are a technical ceramic manufacturer, and with the same opinion of colleague from the Roca. How to change from the natural gas to electricity? For example, I have 4 natural gas furnaces, 3 megawatt each. If I change to electricity, that means 15 megawatt of power per hour. From green energy, in my city, it's impossible to take 15 megawatt per hour from green energy. I should to take from the coal power plant or from the nuclear power plant. How this will happen in such certain time from 10 years, as said the colleagues. Thank you.
Very clear in a very short time. Thank you very much. The fourth one was there, yes, and the fifth one is there.
I was the fourth one, Mirosław Jaroszewicz from Tyson Brick Europe Federation. I would like to address a question to Mr. Ros de Sempere. What is very interesting for me, how it is on day-to-day business, on the day-to-day work, this development of the regulations for the buildings, for the construction materials, how they are correlated with the principles of a new European Bauhaus. Yes? Those principles, as you have mentioned, and Mrs. Pinero as well mentioned, the principles are sustainability, beauty, and inclusion. Inclusion, we can read affordability.
So how this development of the regulations balance all of those three principles, not to go that sustainability completely overloads affordability or something vice versa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last word was there. There is those. Excuse me, there is another one. Yes, it was first. Your time.
Mauro Rullo from Confindustria Ceramica. I have a question for Dirk. And I had the possibility to read the study, and we know that embodied carbon is an emerging topic both from commercial and policymaker level. And even if we don't think that the single parameter approach is the right one to assess environmental performance for building material, because it exposes us to the burden shifting, and I think is not in the interest of anyone to have this kind of, let's say, problem. And we know that policymakers have to ensure a level playing field for building materials. In your opinion, which would be, if you will be the policymaker, or if you can give a suggestion, a scientific suggestion to the policymaker, what would you suggest for a proper assessment of global warming potential through the life cycle assessment of building material? Thank you.
Thank you. Mara Caboara from the European Expanded Clay Association. My question is for Marcos Ros de Semper and Philip, mostly concerns the CPR revision. Well, first of all, I will quickly mention some important elements: the reuse, recycling, also use of waste in our sector as fuel. That is very important. So how are the negotiation going concerning the indicators that go beyond the global warming potential, and especially the additional indicators in the trilogue? It's a bit of a technical question, but I know it is a very important one for our sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, as I told you at the beginning, it's very important to take into account time, and it's something that from Broca was highlighted. Now, I put a challenge for all of you. You have 1 minute, each one, to answer all these interesting questions. If they are able to do the agenda you want to require, you have to be able to answer in 1 minute each. Then I am going from this side to this side. Then I will start with Mr. Simons.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge to answer it in 1 minute. I think if we want to arrive at a fair level playing field for construction products and in comparison of environmental impact, maybe you should not only look at global warming potential, but also look at other parameters. We have a system in place in Europe. It's called the product environmental footprint. There's also a single score option. Obviously, greenhouse warming potential is a very important factor that should weigh in a lot in this single score option. What is very important actually is to look back into the methodology of LCAs and really make sure that all environmental impacts are taken into account from absolutely cradle to grave. And I think we need a lot of revision in the background databases. It's something there that is right now is a fundamental lack, and I think that's where we should start.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Ros Sampere. The floor is yours.
Okay, I have two questions. The first one is about the negotiations on the CPR. I honestly don't have information coming from the rapporteur about the upcoming negotiation. I have information about the EPBD revision, but not from the CPR. But I can make the searching, and if the case, pass the information to the board. Okay. And the second question is about the harmonization of the CPR development with the new European Bauhaus principles. First of all, let me say that the European Bauhaus is not a directive, it's not a regulation, it's not a funding scheme, it's just an initiative that was launched by the European Commission that invites every one of us to change the mindset and to try to not only look at sustainability, but look at sustainability with also inclusion and beauty. CPR is nothing to, is not related initially to an European Bauhaus. It was a regulation coming from the Fit for 55 package and proposed by the European Commission. But if I may, I can say some suggestions. It will be the developers of projects that want to use products coming from the sector, construction products, that will be responsible for integrating these sustainable products into a beauty and inclusive project. And then we will have a new European Bauhaus project. And last thing, I think it was the first edition of the New European Bauhaus Awards. It was a prize coming from a relevant, a new star. It was only a product. It was not a building. It was not a city action. It was a ceramic product to purchase, in which each piece of ceramic could ensure a nest for birds and so on. And you can incorporate principles of the new European Bauhaus in your sector if you are able to, and if you have the imagination and the willing to do that. So I think I have tried to respond.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Ratana from this side.
There was not really a question to me, but I want to stress out the colleague from Spain regarding the electric kiln, which is also a question of the grid at the end, because this is what we always forget. Even if we have the technology and we have the kilns already installed, we still need the grid to deliver all the energy that we need. And this is really a challenging situation, because it is not in the hand of our members, companies, SMEs, whatever, to implement and to install all the grids that we need. And then we are already at the time frame that we gave us. So how should we fulfill this time frame if we have not an influence on it? So I'm pretty sure that, like you said before, we did our homework already, and we are still going on to do our homework, because there's still a lot of things to do and to solve. But this fundamental part, like the grid of electricity, also for hydrogen, it depends on, so that has to be given to us, and we have to ensure that we get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I give you the floor to Mr. Mosley in order to answer 1 minute and a half.
Thank you. Yes, there were a couple of questions. First of all, on the question on the time for the kilns and investment, I think that's, as Murray just said, the provision of renewable energy is something that's going to help this. You know, there is the Repower EU package, and the Renewable Energy Directive should make it much quicker now to give permits to renewable energy. That should help. But also, there's never going to be enough public funding, so leveraging private sector funding is key. That's one of the things, of course, the taxonomy is meant to do, but there are other ways as well. Then on the taxonomy specifically, on some of these detailed criteria on the circular economy, I think that when the criteria were first developed, first of all by the platform experts, and then when it came to the Commission, there was a general realization that data is difficult to get hold of, good data, and if we are to improve the criteria, which we're open to do, the best way to do that is to have more information, more scientific basis to change some of these things. So data from industry is very welcome if that can help that process. I think that's definitely fair to say. And then there have been several comments on life cycle analysis and global warming potential and all of these things. A general point I would make on that is that we should always remember in the built environment the importance of looking at the asset level, not only at the product level, because construction products on their own, they don't operate on their own. They are installed in a building or a piece of infrastructure, and then you need to look at the environmental performance of that. And different construction products can perform in different ways in a different context, even in the same building, if they're in a roof or a wall. So the asset level is really key, and that it means that the products can be assessed fairly against one another as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I have to conclude this excellent panel. Let me first thank you very much to Cerame-Unie for inviting me to moderate this panel. Thank you very much for organizing this splendid European Ceramic Day inside the European Parliamentary and Ceramic Forum. I think it's the best parliamentary forum because we have the best members and also the best MEPs of the European Parliament involved with you. We have to be proud of this. And I would like to conclude with two things. I think we face huge challenges, but we can't lose. We have to win, and we are able to do it. But we need a lot of leadership. Somebody mentioned something referring to that. We need leadership because if there is political willingness, and you know where we want to go, we can arrive there. This is the first. The second, we need real very good managers controlling the administrative procedures. We are always talking about a problem with a regulation, and I think we don't think a lot in the implementation of the regulation. I think it's very important when we build regulation in order to achieve new objectives, necessary objectives, we need to think much more in the way we are able to implement this regulation. And if we don't take into account the pace, the reality of the pace we have, and we try to arrive to a point in a time that is not possible to achieve there, we can have a huge problem because this is a lack of certainty on regulators. And this type of acting can produce a lack of confidence. And this is what exactly the opposite we need. In order to achieve the objectives and to face the challenges, we need to be sure that we can do it and that we have the best regulation and the best way of implementing it. Then we have a lot of work to do, particularly in some part of this table. Then thank you very much. I think I am going to have the opportunity to participate in the drinking later, and we have the possibility to talk much more in detail. Thank you very much, and thank you all of these experts. A lot of work.
Yes.
We call the speakers for the next panel to join so that we can start as soon as possible.
Good afternoon. Let's start and try to recuperate a little bit of the time that we are late. So we are now in the panel that is called Implementation of the Fit for 55 package. I'm going to moderate this debate with very diverse experts from the practical side, from the industry and also from the European Commission and from the President. So we have here the three institutions, European institutions. And just about me, I'm Maria Graça Carvalho, member of the European Parliament, but just a curiosity, I have worked a lot in ceramic industry in my research career, because I did my PhD in glass industry, and after I have also been modeling and measuring and optimization of ceramic kilns, so both in Portugal, Italy, United States. So it's a pleasure to be here because I follow close the details that you are talking about. So we are going to start with the short interventions about that we have requested some clarification of some points to each of the speakers. And it's my honor and really a pleasure to introduce as first speaker a very good friend of mine from a long time, Beatriz Jordi, that knows everything about this area on the regulation, because she has been in the area of energy, climate in the European Commission in different positions, and she's now director in DG Clima and responsible for ETS, and I suppose also for the CBAM, that is so important for the ceramic industry. Ceramic industry has been very much affected by the crisis, whose still a big amount of, I think 80% is natural gas, very difficult to replace the natural gas by electrification. So we need to have special attention for this sector, and Beatriz is going to explain us the regulation and how the implementation is going to be done in the ceramic industry. Beatriz, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria Graça. I mean, a pleasure to be with you and an honor, I have to say. Also, a big thanks for this European Ceramic Days, for this invitation. Far from knowing everything, clearly not, but very happy to be with you today. I know the sensitivities of the ceramic industry, the difficulties, the context of the energy crisis, the dependence. So I have several questions that I would like to address, and I'll try to be fast because I know it's late. We have a fantastic panel, so I don't want to take time for others, neither from the cocktail. So just to go on where we are in the revision of Fit for 55. So this, the revision, the Green Deal has been a historical policy. It has been the mandate of this Commission. It has been full forces. We have been presenting all the different legislative proposals, nearly done, all of it. From my side, we have the new ETS revision, emission trading system, the new maritime system that is kicking, starting in some days. In January 2024, aviation ETS reinforced, ETS2, as we call it, building and transport, where small industries, some small industries come in, and part of them ceramic industry, and CBAM. I'm not responsible of CBAM, this is TaxSud, but we have been cooperating, and we cooperate very close with them, because, and also the last trialogue, it was together CBAM and ETS, because as you know, when the free allocation are starting to be reduced in 2026, CBAM starts to be introduced. So in the implementation, running with you, I mean you with member states, with experts, working in the different implementation. We have numerous dozens of implementing acts to do and delegated acts under this scrutiny of this Parliament. So what we are answering is, I don't know if, Maria Gracia, you want me that I stay general or I go to all the questions?
You go to all the questions.
Okay, super.
But in
5 minutes, okay, I rush. So implementation going full speed, and happy to answer whatever question you may have that, if I know the answer. CBAM started already in May 2023, so has already started, but with reporting obligation. The real starting economic value CBAM starts in 2026. On the stated guidelines that I know on indirect cost compensation, I know it has been a request from the ceramic industry, but as also you know how we evaluate the risk and to be in that pot of stated guidelines of indirect cost compensation is there are two big factors: trade exposure, ceramic industry has it, but the other one, which is indirect emission intensity, ceramic industry is low compared to other sectors. However, as you know, we have put in place the temporary crisis and transition framework that still applies to the ceramic industry. On the ETS2, we have not set up a free allocation framework. Just to say that we have moved in this ETS extension, we move for covering 43% of the economy to 75% of the economy. So it's nearly a doubling of the coverage. Building and transport, why they are in now, because they were growing with the emissions, really growing, both sectors, and that's why we are putting this under carbon pricing. But no free allocation for these sectors, but recovery and resilience funds, revenues from ETS, and very important, revenues. And let me just drop a number. In the last years, ETS1, as we call it, the classical, has raised 150 billion euro for member states. This money now, the money that every year, now we are in 37 billion last year, they need to go 100% to climate investment. And there, please do not hesitate to go to member states to invest in decarbonization. If I can go to the 2040, and the 2040 is a lot of attention, and my last point, it is an obligation under the climate law. We are working on it. We will do it. We will do it at the beginning of next year. We will present a communication with an impact assessment, and we will put there the factual part, scientific part, cost, different aspects of 2040, and for the next Commission to do a legal proposal. So they will put on the table this communication and this impact assessment. Commissioner Hoekstra has said in this building, in the European Parliament, that he will present the minimum recommended target of 90%. He will fight for this 90%. As you know, there is also the European Scientific Advisory Body has been more ambitious on that. But my commissioner wants to put on the table, this is the range we are talking about. So more details coming in beginning of next year on the figures, possible ranges and details on how this decarbonization path could look like. We think that for stability, for investment, for a pooling for innovation, that we will need to put this 20-40% in addition that we have the legal obligation. And that's my fast walk for the different questions.
Thank you very much, Beatriz. And now we go to the Council, and it's an honor to have with us representing the Spanish presidency, Miguel Castro Velho. Is an environmental advisor and the coordinator in the permanent representation of Spain, and is going to tell us from the presidents of what is the point of view of the progress of the implementation of the Fit for 55, and also all the approval that we are still finalizing, all the more than 30 regulations and directives that we have done in energy and climate. Please.
Thank you very much, Maria Gracia, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to this so important meeting on this key file, as it is the climate reduction emissions. It is an honor for me to be here, and thank you for your assistance as well. Well, when we talk about the reductions and the fight against climate change, the first thing we have to bear in mind is the framework where we are. And we are in a turning point in the economic life and in the society life in Europe, and that is without any doubt. We are behaving below the umbrella of the Paris Agreement, where sets a target of reducing, not overcoming the 1.5 degree target. And under this umbrella, the European Council agreed to reduce emissions strongly to at least 55%. Not only the European Council, but it has been followed by a regulation from the European Parliament and of the Council, the so-called European Climate Law, that sets a fixed limit for 2030 reduction of at least 55% of emissions in relation to 2020. We have also to bear in mind where we are, and we have to remember what is the course or the direction the Union is taking, and we can remember as well that ahead of the meeting of the COP28 on climate change, the Council of Environment agreed on a position of the European Union, and the position of the European Union is to fight for the global phase-out of unabated fossil fuels, that it is very much dear to the ceramic industry, for sure, and also for a peak in the consumption already in this decade. The EU has also agreed to call for a global action towards tripling the renewable energy capacity to 11 terabytes and to doubling the rate of energy efficiency improvement by 2030. I mention all that in order to frame us a little bit that we are in an more or less inevitable course towards the reduction of emissions and towards working on this strongly improvement of energy efficiency. In order to achieve and to reach these targets, action has to be taken by all actors. It cannot be left for the others to act. And that is the case of the ceramic European sector, that it is expected from them also a strong contribution with big challenges in this framework with these big targets that has been already agreed. For the ceramic industry, it is obvious that the main contribution is done through the ETS. The ETS is a system that you well know has been in operation since 2000. The first directive has been adopted in 2003, and I think that in 2003, setting up the first system that was voluntary from 2005 to 2007. I say that because I think very few people could imagine how the system will be 20 years after that is today. The ETS has followed a lot of, at least 4 changes for reforms. The ambition has been increased progressively. Also, the scope and the efficiency of the ETS as the system has also been increased. It is very relevant, the reform that has been completed through the F55 package in order to reach the at least 55 target, where the objective for reducing GHG gases, the greenhouse gases, has been raised to a target of 62% reduction, a very strong reduction, a very challenging reduction in relation to 2005. Also, with this reform, the free allocation of allowances will be progressively phased out for some industrial sectors. Well, now, with this framework, we are entering a key period of implementation. The implementation of the ETS is done, as Bea clearly explained, by both together, hand in hand. Well, it's done at the end of the day by the installations themselves. Those are the ones who have to bear and who has to produce the reduction of emissions and the mitigation effort. But the concrete rules, the concrete procedures, the concrete way of doing it is mainly done by member states and by the commissions, all together in producing delegated acts and derivative regulations. The presidency has not a big role in the implementation, as it belongs, as I said, to the Commission and member states. In following with this implementation of the ETS, industry, and that is particularly true for the process emissions, is one of the hard-to-abate sectors, and is those sectors that poses a particular challenge for reaching the net zero emission for 2050, and that it makes these hard-to-abate sectors a need to make bigger efforts. They have many particular characteristics, the ceramic industry. Another important or relevant characteristic, well, at least in Spain, I mean to say, is that it is concentrated on a specific part of the territory and that it comprises a significant number of SMEs. The average volume of emissions per installation is relatively small compared to other industrial installations. In Spain, for example, the ceramic industry represents 14% on the installations regulated under regular ETS, the classic ETS, but it represents only 3% of the total emissions. Also, a particular characteristic of the ceramics installations in Spain is that they are mostly excluded through the system of the Article 27, that is the system of the excluding or applying equivalent measures to the installations that are below 25,000 CO2 tons per year. All these elements are the characteristics that made the ceramic sector particularly different to many others. Nevertheless, even in these situations, the ceramic sector, as all the other sectors, has to do the part of the efforts. Otherwise, the common targets will not be achieved. And we have been witnessing that in recent years, the sector is increasing its efforts to meet the challenges. We are seeing now that there are companies, there are installations that are intensively reassessing their options and their ways to reduce emissions. And that is a question, I could almost say, a question of survival. We are witnessing some installations that are incorporating strongly the renewable energy sector in the sources in their production processes. Others are increasingly improving their efficiency, for instance, by the use of oxycombustion. Finally, we have known also of some particular cases of companies that are engaging with other sectors to explore, test, and implement the use of renewable hydrogen. And we are also witnessing a growing interest on CCU and CCS, which are promising alternatives for the process emissions. The interest on these processes, CCS, CCU, is clearly increasing in the ceramic industry. There is a time now that it's more difficult than before, not only because of the crisis that mentioned by Maria da Graça, by Beatriz and so, but also because the more and the more we go into the stringent target and stringent objectives, the more difficult it is to make the reductions. And that is what is making so particular these times, and so is in some way awakening the interest on these new technologies, new developments. And we hope that these new developments that could be also, among other things, financed through innovation funds and through some other funds could help the installation, the ceramic installations, to meet the challenges they have ahead. And I think I should stop because I have spoken too much already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we go now to industry. And Christian Meyer, President of the European Refractories Producers Federation and Managing Director of Refractechnique Cement. And the practical implementation of this, all this legislation that we have been working in the Parliament, the Commission, and in the Council. We are going to listen now from the practical side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, I'm wearing two hats to cover my bald head. So one is, being president of the European Refractory Association, and the other one is the managing director of Refractechnique Cement, which is a group company of the Refractechnique Group, which itself, is the largest family-owned refractory company in the world. Just to give you the background, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about. I'm an expert in European policy, so I would like to give you the insight, a short insight into our daily life. First of all, I would like to stress and emphasize, what others have done as well. We are fully committed to the goals and objectives of the European Commission. We are, as an industry itself, but also, me personally and our company. So these are the right things to do. Now we have to take care that we do the things right. And so, and obviously, that's our major concern. Actually, I was hoping that I would sit next to Beatrice, but so she could kick me on the table, if I say something factually wrong. But I'm just coming out of the discussion of our investment planning, and our owner, he asked me every time I see him, he asks me the same question: Why should we invest in Europe? Why should we? And again, just to give you the background, our industry, as many has mentioned before, is a very capital-intensive industry. So if we invest, it's not just for the next 2 or 3 years. Our equipment must run then for 20, 25 years to make the investment work. So that's one thing. The other thing is, our industry is right now in a big consolidation process. And we it's no secret that we as a company want to participate in this consolidation process, and then we have to make sure that we invest our funds correctly. So again, why should we invest in Europe? And in the past it was always an easy answer. It was easy because we have. I could easily convince our owner that we have stable political, stable social, stable economical conditions in Europe, which we have the right people here. We have the good education here. We have all the preconditions here to be successful. And recently I'm a little bit running out of exactly those arguments. So I think we are at a crucial moment right now. So to still make that discussion. Veronique Willems said before, we only got the sticks, and the carrots have disappeared or are missing. I think the carrots are still here, but they're not in Europe anymore, right? So currently we don't have the right incentives, to invest in Europe. The carrots right now, they are in the Americas, they're in Asia, but not necessarily in Europe, and long term, absolutely yes, but we need to also take care of the short and medium term success if we want to see the long term. I'm just another example. I'm just coming back from India, from a business trip to India, where we had the fantastic inauguration of the newest plant of our sister company, Refrotechnic India, and it was obvious why we should invest in India. There's a booming market there, and within 14 months we built a completely new plant from scratch. Right, 14 months. It takes me longer to tie my shoes than they had time to build an entire plant. So it's impressive, right? And and we have to acknowledge, that this would never ever be possible in Europe in that time frame. You walk through the plant and then you think, arrogant as I am, yes, I would do this differently and that differently. Yes, but as a matter of fact, 14 months we couldn't beat that, right? So. And that's something that's obviously a concern for us, when we think about where should we put our money, where should we prioritize our investment. However, it's not all doom and gloom. It sounds very pessimistic. But as a matter of fact, I'm still here, right? Why is that? I'm still here because I'm optimistic, that we can actually manage it. And the key is, that we have the preconditions that we can be successful. Many of us have mentioned it before. The access to the energy. That we don't go overboard on the burden on for example, just keyword process emissions or process emissions factor, right? I mean, that's one area that we need to be careful where we're going. Without. All we want is that we have a good and deep consideration of all the facts before we go forward there. So I still think we have pretty good preconditions or conditions here. Look in this room. We have so many smart people that can make a difference. We just have to make sure that all these good ideas have an opportunity to make the breakthrough to come into reality. We have to include all the stakeholders, in the discussion to make sure that everybody understands what's at stake, and I think then we still have a very bright future for the industry in Europe. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And for our last intervention is José Luis Lanuza, also from the industry side, Vice President of the European Ceramic Tiles Manufacturers Federation and CEO of Victoria Ceramics, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the intervention of all of you. So in the last one, so I won't say many different things from the industry. I will try to say it in a different way, at least. And I've been. That lets me just an introduction of me, because we, as my colleague said, most of the industries in the sector are SME, but I don't represent an SME. So I'm the CEO of a multinational company. We do produce in Italy, Spain, and Turkey. So we are like top 15 in the world. If we take out the companies that they don't produce in Europe, or a European production, maybe it's top 5. So we represent this part of the industry which is not SME. We are not even a European company, because we are a British company. We are listed in the stock exchange. And in my board, there is only two Europeans. One is me. We have 1 British, 3 Americans, and 1 New Zealander, 1 Kiwi. So, and I would say that because I've been asked to explain what is the main challenge of the industry regarding the ETS and the regulation. And I mean, if you are an SME, Your challenge is to survive. If you are a big company, your challenge is to decide, as my colleague said, where are you going to invest? And this is not because we are not used to compete in tougher situations or in tougher conditions. I mean, we know what Europe is. So we've been dealing with tougher regulations in everything. We have higher labor costs. I think we could even manage higher energy costs as we have today. We could manage this, but we cannot manage unrealistic regulations. Unrealistic things that we cannot do. I mean, let me be clear from the beginning. We agreed on decarbonization. I think that this is part of the responsibility of the companies as well. We believe in leading by example. So we accept that Europe can be leading by example. But we cannot do miracles. We believe in doable and ambitious but doable targets. And people who is setting targets is not being realistic. At least, as someone from the industry said before, in timings. It is not possible to achieve what we are requested in the time that has been set. It's very simple. Now we are discussing what will be the new, what is the technical, I'm not a technical guy, but I will tell to you. What is the process factor? What is the process emission factor? We are at 3%, so 0.97. Someone proposed 79, 0.79, 21%. If you are in my chair, what can I do tomorrow for that? I have the money. What can I buy to reduce the emissions 21%? If you know, please tell me, because I have no idea. And if we want to be in 2030, we need to invest now. Because my next strategy plan begins 2025. And I have to decide where I will put the money of my shareholders. What is the technology we have to buy? What is the energy that we will use instead of the fossil fuel? Nobody knows. I don't believe my political partners, sorry, they don't know. And they don't know when, which is the most important thing. Because we can reduce emissions, sure. Europe can lead, sure. We can do it in the time we are proposing? No. And you know what is the worst part of this? That now we are starting to consider that this is a tax. And this is the worst thing for this. Because if this is the tax, you do two things. Or you pass through the consumer, or you move to a place where you don't have to pay tax. And this is my point of view on what is the impact of this. Then, I've been asked as well a couple of comments. I will be fast. I have time? 2 minutes? Yes. One is about the indirect cost. We have been explained that the energy is not eligible for indirect cost. I will say something. So, the eligibility of the industries was set, based on the electro-intensive data of 2013-2015. In terms of business, this is not even this era. This is a different era. And they are taking decisions on 2013-2015 data. Electricity prices that the Commission is considering are based on the electricity prices before the energy crisis, before the increase of the cost of the carbon rights. This is not possible. So we want to be very fast on something, but we are not fast enough to reconsider the decisions we have taken. And I will say something. Also, I think we need to be consistent when you make regulation. If we want an industry who is intensive in fossil fuel, and we want to help and to motivate and to incentivize for electrification, I think he should be treated as an electricity intensive industry, even if it is not. Because if we want to push these particular energy-intensive companies, the ones using fuels, fossil fuels, or fossil energies, we need to incentivize them. I think the cost is not what will change our lives, but it's a signal that the regulator is with us. And last, I want to make a mention to the CBAM. CBAM is a dangerous thing because, I mean, what about the sporting sectors? What about sectors like refractory of ceramic tiles, where we export 32% in the case of refractories? 39% of our sales in ceramic tiles are done outside the European Union. Why it is not possible to consider that will be free allocation for the part of the production that is going out of the European Union? Why this is not under consideration? How are we going to compete with the guys who are producing outside the European Union? What should I do in my position? I should move 35 or 40% of my production outside the European Union? And then, this is, I will take advantage of what Mr. Castroviejo said, and that will be, I don't like at all when I hear talking about us about installations. We are not installations. We are companies. Companies with people, with workers. In our cases, in Italy and Spain, with a big impact on our community. We are in small towns that depends on our industry. We cannot think in ourselves of installations. We cannot accept this. We are not installations. We are companies that want to do things properly and that we need only help and time. I don't even say that help. I always say, we don't need, I mean, of course, every man is welcome, but at this moment, we need time. Time to see what will be the technology. Because no SME and our companies has no the knowledge, the financial capacity to change the technology. We need to wait until the technology will appear, and at that moment be ready to invest. I will finish with something that I hear in my board, and this is a little bit, I hope it doesn't sound very aggressive for the people from the Parliament and from the Commission, but you know what the Americans ask me? Who is on the wheel in Europe? We don't understand what is happening. Thank you.
So, Beatrice, you want to react?
Surely I want to react. I have many meetings with industry, and I think that something very important is to hear from industry, not to see how the technologies will evolve, because we don't want the industry to see. We want the industry to work in innovative development. We want the industry to work in green solutions. Let me just give to both gentlemen and Christian, I don't know if you wanted me to sit next to you, that I kick you, but honestly, I felt the kicking in the other way. Just to the two gentlemen, you're in a board, a multinational company. Bad news, you are working with UK, you are working with New Zealand. Both UK and New Zealand have carbon markets. UK.
No, we're not producing there.
Okay, but in your board, they know very well. So these are two jurisdictions that they have similar carbon markets to us. UK used to be part of our carbon market. When they left, they copy the same carbon market. US does not have. They have the RRA, which is money injection, great, but also has some criticism if it's upstream, if it's downstream, if it's money now but hunger for the future, how is the situation? I think that one thing that, and also India, also for you, Christian, India is thinking of a carbon market. And this is exactly what we would like to see, carbon markets all around the world. Because it's very, I mean, I don't want the trillions of numbers of inaction, but we have just suffered an energy crisis because we have a high dependence on fossil fuels, ladies and gentlemen. So if we don't go out of this dependence of fossil fuels, I don't know what is the sustainable future. And this is why we have invested, and I say we, because it's not only the Commission here isolated, it's member states elected in democracy and European Parliament. This is why we have done the recovery plan, more than 700 billion euros to inject in industries, to inject in people to cope with the COVID crisis, repower, to invest for coping with the crisis. So the question of US, what are we doing here? Honestly, I have to show some proudness of what Europe is doing, how we cope with these both crises that I think is impressive. Just on this unrealistic regulation, I'm for 6 years working in the carbon markets. We have reduced 37% the emissions, 37% the emissions. Yearly, the companies have the obligation to reduce around 2.2%. We have reductions per year of around 4%. So it was faster than the carbon markets. And it's not a tax, and it's clearly it's not a tax. There are people that go faster, others go slower, and we understand well the problems of the industry. And probably you will be happy on the process emissions in some weeks. But I don't think it is fair to call unrealistic regulation, because the decarbonisation in Europe is happening. It has been the power sector, yeah, it has been the power sector. I was myself 20 years ago involved in the first renewable directive, and I saw with my eyes the first megawatt installed in Europe, 1 megawatt, when the whole council was saying that it was a ridiculous policy. The ridiculous policy means that Europe is leader, world leader in wind energy. So I think that industry now is moving, and is decarbonising. And I understand the problems of the industry, and believe me, that from Europe we understand and we try to put all the funds aligned to this decarbonisation. But I think that it's a little bit unfair to say that we are kind of unrealistic regulation. And just last point, exporting CBAM. You say that CBAM is dangerous. CBAM was requested by many parts of the industry, big parts of the industry, clearly the cement industry. Not you, but you are not under CBAM, just to be very clear. The ceramic industry is not under CBAM. And why CBAM is not covering exporting, and I finish this, and you can go on after is your turn. So why is not exporting part of CBAM? Very simple, WTO. And all our lawyers say that our CBAM will last a few weeks if we put an export CBAM. But we are, nevertheless, we are watching this with a lot of care.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, I want to say two things, please. Possible.
You want to say
Yes,
something? Because we have to open to the audience.
Okay,
short.
just to think, okay. It is true that the emission has been reduced. It is true because, I mean, we have done it a lot. We have done it even before that there was any regulation. And this is true. But it has been reduced, optimizing the available technology and the available energy. We are not talking about any evolution anymore. We need a change of technology. The change of technology is not available. I know, I mean, everyone understands that the system is to motivate the industry to invest, to find new technologies, or to improve or to reduce the carbon emissions. But as I said, we have no the financial capacity, we have no the technical knowledge, we have no the people who can change a technology, the technology we are using. This is the truth. And And as I said, if I'm here and I have to decide tomorrow, I have to invest, and I need to invest. The only technology available to invest in the same as last day, the one using gas for kilns and for atomizers. We don't know any other, because everybody's talking about putting hydrogen, but we don't know how the hydrogen will arrive, but we don't see the hydrogen, the biogas. My consumption of gas is more than all the biogas production in Spain. Okay? And this is the truth. This is our truth, because it's a different truth. So I don't see, I don't see how today we will start going, it's more than that. I don't see how to make a step, a significant step, to be ready for 2030. And 2030 is there. And if someone who has to take the decisions to decide how to do it, maybe I'm a stupid guy in the industry, but I think it's most of my colleagues have the same problem, if not 100% of them. I mean, if we don't know how to do it, I mean, if I would be a regulator, I should be worried.
Can we open to comments? So we'll collect some comments. But we need to finish at 6:35. Yes. Very short comments, please.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Trunneck. I'm from Maritime Magnesita, Austrian-based refractory company. Most of the things are already said. Reduced cap of emission trading. The question is, can we be fast enough? I have my doubts. What will happen? As mentioned already, the large ones will move outside Europe. The small companies will just disappear. Nobody will claim on a few 10,000 plants. Everyone working 5 people, 3 people, not that much. But maybe you've read our manifesto. 5 million of exports are created every year of this sector, for the whole sector. And I see here a big threat that we will lose it. So we will lose the production, we will lose the workplaces, and maybe we have saved then, or we reduced the CO2 emissions, but we have destroyed a lot of value. That is one comment. Other one, just mentioned, because we have here members of Parliament, Council, and Commission. When I'm here in Brussels, I get very often told, yeah, that's an issue of the member states. And I think, yes, you are right. If I'm in the member states in Austria or Germany, I get told, yeah, you have to go to the Commission. And here I would say, what I really would say, it's time to reform that, to have it more clear and more precise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other comment, please?
My name is Preslav Christov from Cerame Bulgaria. I'm a doctor in ceramic. So one short comment about everybody speaking hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. Believe me, this is not the panacea. To produce hydrogen, now the technology is the electrolysis. From where we will take the electricity to produce the hydrogen and then to burn instead of the methane gas. This is totally crazy idea first, and second, from the smallest atomic radius of the hydrogen in the high temperature, it is very aggressive and start to make a reaction with the kiln furniture, and the kiln furniture reduce its lifetime more than 3 times. That means if now I produce, I make reparation of the kiln per 2000 cycles, if I use hydrogen, it will reduce to 400 cycles, which doesn't make total sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Please.
Yes. Alexander Logier from Vesuvius. When I was a student in 1990, one of my colleagues did his master's thesis on how long does it take for a solar panel to produce enough electricity to reimburse the energy that went into manufacturing the solar panel. At that time, the answer was 27 years. Now, of course, technology has matured, and in 2020, for the first time, the cost of an installed kilowatt hour of solar or wind power is cheaper than the cost of a kilowatt hour of installed fossil fuel. And I think that the key point is this: it takes time for technologies to mature, not only from a R&D point of view, scientific point of view, but in terms of deployment of the technologies, scaling up and bringing the cost down. And I think that whether it's hydrogen, whether it's electricity, carbon capture, I mean, there's a number of technologies on the table here that need to evolve. That time factor is something that we need to take into account, because it is going to have a strong impact on our ability, not just our industry, but industries across all sectors, to decarbonize. If the technologies move at a certain pace and the available carbon allowances don't move at the same pace, we have a squeeze. And I think that's the thing that we are all very much afraid of.
I don't know if there is any other. Otherwise, I don't think that there was a question, so I will conclude myself and I will try to address some of the points. So we had here a very interesting and very frank discussion, both from the Commission and Presidents, explaining what is going on in terms of implementation of the Fit for 55 and the reaction from the industry. And I have to admit that I understand perfectly your concerns. It's a sector that is difficult to electrify. So the sectors that are easier to electrify have much easier life to get to the targets of 2030, because there is, we hope, affordable and available electric energy for the electrification, but is not the case of your sector, like the glass, like the cement. There are energy-intensive industries, difficult to electrify, and believe me, we take into consideration the diversification, all the sectors, that the sectors are not all equal. For example, I'm now one of the rapporteurs of the electricity market design, and both in the crisis mechanism and on the revenues of the contracts for difference, so to take advantage of the lower price of the electricity, we are taking as a special case of the energy-intensive industries as a case that needs to benefit from the whole system and be treated in a special way. Is the vulnerable consumers and industries with a special attention to the energy-intensive industry. So we cannot say that we are legislating and considering all the sectors the same. And we have also many funds that promotes the development of technology. I really, I'm with you in the terms of schedule. 2030 is going to be very difficult, and in some sectors impossible, because some of the technologies, and I'm, for example, very aware of a very interesting project that my university in Portugal is doing with several industries in Spain for the ceramics, where they are using microwave for the ceramic industry. But it's something that they are doing in a very small scale, and they say, I have asked, and they tell me, 2040, 2035, they start scaling up. So it takes time. It's a very promising, but takes time. It's financed by Horizon Europe. All that will take time. These solutions take time for ceramics. So you need to continue to push for your special case, because I'm convinced you have a special case in terms of decarbonization. Is a difficult sector to decarbonize, and we as policymakers have to treat things that are different in a different way. We try, if we have not tried enough. We will do our best, and it's important that we are here to listen from your difficulties so that we legislate better and in a more doable way. And we promise that we try very hard. And keep also your contacts in the Parliament are very important, that people in the European Parliament also listen from your concerns. So I thank you all very much. Thank you for the speakers and organizers and all the audience. It was a very lively, very interesting, one of the most interesting debates that I have had here in the Parliament in my long career in Commission and Parliament, because it was very frank, and that is good. So thank you very much, and applause for everyone.
Thank you. So on behalf of Cerame-Unie, I would like to thank Mrs. Graça Carvalho for the chairmanship. And it's not the first time that you come this year to an EP Ceramics Forum. You also came for the energy market design. Next year we will gather on the 3rd of December, so please put it in your agendas. Normally we have not booked the room yet, but we are waiting for the elections. There is one topic that we have not discussed today too much, which is the ETS2. Maybe we can do it in the corridor. But there is a huge need for harmonization on carbon leakage. I can design to you people who are discriminated even within my industry, because you have those who were in the ETS and those who were not in the ETS, and then they are absolutely not considered in any ways in 2018. So that we would like to discuss and stress that we need some stated guidelines that are really harmonizing at the European level for the carbon leakage for ETS2. And now we can invite everyone to join us downstairs. You are very welcome at the cocktail, where we will present also the manifesto for the European elections. And I think the ambassador of Spain to the EU is waiting for us, so we have to go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.